Now, let us continue my account of the new life, what I've written, what I've gathered from the new life of Meher Baba. You know, I told of the story of Erich going across a flooded causeway in the midst of his work and under directions from Baba and the start of the new life, and how he could have been swept away because the river was in flood.
Right.
But let us look at what all this means to us. Do we have a new life? Yes, as I said earlier, I feel we do the moment we experience and accept in our hearts the avatarhood of Meher Baba. I believe at that moment a step is taken towards the fulfillment of our path to God. However, a new life means change, and we naturally resist change. The mind conditioned into patterns of thinking and feeling from the evolutionary process and many incarnations as human beings resists the deeper promptings of the heart and seeks to maintain control. Erich told us a very good story that illustrates the nature of the mind. Sam Kerawalla was a ship's radio officer, and so his mother, Banu Masi, would see her son perhaps at 3-year intervals, and she would worry all the time while he was away that his ship might be wrecked and so on. One day there was a group around Baba and Banu Masi was present. Baba said, "What a game this life is. We live and we die time and again, and yet we continue to remain unaffected as long as we do not know of death. But no sooner does the news reach us that so-and-so has died, we are affected by it." Then Baba turned to Sam's mother, Banu Masi, and said, "Your son is at sea now. But suppose that I, the all-knowing, know that your son is dead. Not that he is dead. He's really alive, but suppose he is dead. And suppose I, the all-knowing, knowing that your son is no longer alive, keep quiet about it. And when you come here seeking comfort from me, I tell you that everything is fine and all is well with your son. What happens? You continue your own life in the world. You go to the movies and theatres, you enjoy yourself and laugh and make others laugh and are cheerful. And all the time your son is dead. But you don't know it. Then perhaps after 6 months, you have the news from some friend and it is heartbreaking. You burst into tears and bemoan the death of your son 6 months after his actual death. Then Baba continued, "It is nothing but the play of the mind. Only as long as the mind is not informed, you enjoy yourself and nothing matters. Likewise, this whole play of life is so illusory and remains day to day dependent on what your mind tells you." And so Baba would speak to the mother, making her heart feel the truth of what he is saying to her. Through such stories, Baba would teach us to accelerate the heart and slow the mind, not letting the mind know what it has lost. And what helps to bring about this change and helps us to take the minute steps towards a new life? Remembering Baba, thinking of him, reading some of his messages to us, picturing him. And each effort, however slight, and then each change, however small, helps us to continue trying. And each time we practice our new life, it becomes easier, bit by bit. Is this more difficult because beloved Baba is not physically with us? No, because he is with us. As he has said, I'm as much with you now as I was when in the body. Again he has said, it's a matter of calling to him from the bottom of your heart. If you want to change, he will make it happen, but gradually, because he wants us to work for the change, to make efforts. And as we do so, we strengthen our spiritual muscles, and we experience by his grace an increasing sense of freedom and detachment. But as I am by his grace at the very beginning of a new life, let us turn again to Eritre's statements as one who is not only with beloved Baba in his new life, but who has also manifestly progressed much further in fulfilling that new life in himself. To me, Eritre echoed Baba's new life to the extent it is possible to live it in the ordinary man state when he said, each morning as I wake, I stretch the limbs and say, another day, another life, totally dependent on him. Let us see what he has said further on Baba's new life. What meaning can I attach to the new life? It was Baba's new life. Baba gave the new life to us all. Baba one day told us that on a certain day he would leave the old life and go out in the new life. And we who were around him just followed him, whether it be new life, old life, past life or present life. We didn't care except just to follow him, to be by his side, to do whatever he wanted us to do. But then he said that those who wanted to follow him in the new life must be prepared to live a life of absolute helplessness and hopelessness. He said it would be a life of wandering and begging for food. We should follow him without any expectation of reward, spiritual or material, and without expectation of him being our Lord and God. He said he would remain as the companion of the companions of the new life. And the most important thing he said was to obey his orders implicitly, whether the orders were good or bad. And to top it all, whether we were happy or unhappy, miserable or elated, we had to put up a very cheerful front under all circumstances. We had to have always a cheerful face, never morose or selfish or sullen or anything like that. Whatever might be happening inside us, we had to keep a cheerful smile for him. In the old life of Baba, we took him to be the God-man. In the new life, we didn't discard him as the God-man. No. It was a new way of life. We had to have him in our hearts. All our feelings remained intact.
That's okay, just call.
All our faith and conviction and our love for him as the God-man, all these were there. But outwardly, he remained to be as our companion. We led a life with him as one of our companions, staying with him, wandering with him, following him. In our old life, we followed the God-man, the Christ. In our new life, we followed our companion. In our hearts, we carried him as our most close one, took him to be the beloved. The other took him to be the friend. Another, the father, mother, sister, every kind of individual aspect of him was there for every individual. And he told us that in the new life we had to leave everything and everyone behind us, whether it be our mothers, fathers, sisters, wives, children, friends, brother disciples, brothers in faith, all, everything. We were not to expect any reward, spiritual or material. And he added that if we were unable to follow him and we lagged behind, unable to catch up with him through sheer exhaustion or sickness, well, we'd have to bear the consequences and be left behind. But at the same time, what I felt, what I experienced was quite different, because in all sincerity, with the fullest conviction that the new life was to be a life of helplessness and hopelessness, I left this place to follow him, and with that conviction was born a life which was something beautiful. There were no strings to fetter me or help me behind. There was no hope, and I relinquished any help. So I was really free. I can't express the feelings that I had because, well, they had to be lived, and that is only possible when one really leaves behind all hope and has not the least thought of any help. And what a beautiful thing that the weather, the climatic conditions never affected us. I was young, but there were so many other older ones, yet we were not affected. And we used to sleep out in the open with no shelter or just under a tree. It was constantly drizzling in North India, and it was bitterly cold. But we were there to follow Baba, that's all. That was our shelter. We were under his wing. But Baba was not the Baba of the old life, the God-man, but Baba the companion. We had not to disclose to anyone that he was the God-man. We could believe whatever we wanted within our hearts, but we were ordered never to express this. So we passed our days like that. How can I bring home to you what our attitude in following him had nothing to do whatsoever with any expectations of any sort? We had not come for God realization, nor for relief from the world, nor to attain a state of that meditation where you stop the mind and remain in samadhi. No, nothing like that. We followed him because we exercised our freedom to become his slaves. It was not compulsory. He did not press us to do it. Our following him was natural. His presence to most of us was so overwhelming that everything else remained insignificant, including the concept of God in heaven or on earth. His presence was such that questions never struck us, and yet gradually he unfolded all the answers. The beauty of his physical presence was such that any questions and doubts the mind may have when away from him became insignificant in his presence. Erich continued, What does Barber's new life mean for people now? There are people now who have chosen to lead a life not according to the conventions and codes of society. All around me I see people living a sort of new life which is different from the old life that they used to live. And I'm reminded again and again, is this the new life which Barber has said would continue to be if there was no one to live it? Then I saw that those who followed Barber's new life were leading a life of simplicity, honesty, with responsibilities and duties on their shoulders. I could see that that was his new life. No. Then I saw that those who followed Barber's new life were leading a life of simplicity, honesty, with responsibilities and duties on their shoulders. I could see that that was his new life. The new life that he wanted us to lead was one which would surpass all hopes and expectations, which would withstand all the vagaries of one's particular life while keeping a cheerful front. Living the new life does not mean that one has to renounce the world and put on the long robe and turban as we did with Barber. He always emphasised a little fact: be most natural. Our being most natural has the sequel of being honest, frank, kind, loving. There is no deceit or conceit in that life. When one is honest, one is natural. But the exercise of your freedom should not become an imposition on others. If I want to live my life the way I want, I should live by myself. But if I am in the company of others, then I should be considerate of them. Be a companion to others, Barber said. Remain as companions with one another. In our new life, Barber chalked out for us a life of total discipline. But at the same time, we never felt that a strict discipline was imposed on us. We felt ourselves responsible for carrying out that discipline. It was not a burden on us. All these factors put together can make his new life. If people want to lead his new life, then I should say it boils down to this: love him, obey him, and lead a life of honesty, a life that would please him. When Barber drops his body, he remains as he is, leaving us now to be present by his side. Before dropping his body, he remained present for us. He remained present by our side. Now it is for us to be present by his side. His companionship will always be with us. It is for us to become his companion. Yes, when beloved Barber dropped the body, I was confronted with the new challenge of making him consciously my inner companion. It was, you could say, another step in my new life, a challenge perhaps for everyone who had been physically with him. Whilst he was in the body, our endeavours had been to please a being living in India, to look longingly to the next occasion of his physical companionship, to receive his encouragement, news of his activities, and his messages of love and blessings. How could the ice around the heart not melt? Another drop or two with a message from him as this: I am God and you are my Billy boy. The constant direction of my thoughts and feelings were naturally in carrying out his wishes, so happy when praised for my efforts, and rather automatically assuming I will see him again after my stay with him in 1967. The thread, remembrance of him, takes us safely through the maze of our lives, through the twists and turns, and reaffirms our new life each time we face once again our lower self in the active, loving affirmation of his name. But how much more must have been the anguish and the challenge for his close bundling with his physical departure. Money spoke of this time.
All right.
Pause.
Pause after end of part 2.